Welcome to We Chat Divorce. Hello, I'm Karen Shalhoub, Legal Liaison, here with Catherine Shanahan, CDFA. We're the co-founders of My Divorce Solution. We're a company whose mission is to change the way people get divorced by providing a different approach, financial clarity, and an online course to help couples develop a transparent plan that will optimize the outcome of their divorce. Each podcast, we sit down with professionals who provide insight and frank discussion on real people, real situations, and real divorce. Today, we welcome Nikki and Ben, co-authors of Our Happy Divorce, How Ending Our Marriage Brought Us Together. That's fantastic. Co-founders Ben Heltfond and Nikki DiBartolo understand that no divorce is ever easy, especially for those involved. After nearly a decade together, the couple decided to split and, inspired by their son Asher, to find ways to happily navigate a divorce. Ben and Nikki created Our Happy Divorce, a service empowering and inspiring people to think differently about divorce, co-parenting, step-parenting, and what it means to put kids first. Nikki and Ben describe themselves as ordinary people who have accomplished something extraordinary. They have sidestepped a lot of the booby traps that make most divorces acrimonious. Nikki and Ben say, if we can do it, you can do it. Thank you.
No truer words have ever been spoken.
I love that. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you for the beautiful gift you sent of your book, the bookmark. It was awesome, beautiful gift. And for people who receive that, it's just so inspiring just to open the box and feel the book. So you guys have done a great job.
Aren't you supposed to send that over to me, Karen?
The chocolate?
Yeah. Where'd that go, Karen?
Everything but the chocolate's on its way.
Everything.
So,
I'll give you my address so I can get one of those.
There you go. That's a deal. We'll get that off to you.
Oh, that's good. So a service inspiring people to think a different way about divorce. How do you do that?
Well, I think we do it through our story, and all this book is our experience. We're not lawyers. We're not therapists. We just happen to figure out a way to have an acrimonious divorce. We didn't have a roadmap. We didn't have, collaborative divorce was sort of in the beginning stages, but, it was just the two of us. And we say, if anybody can do it, if we can do it, anybody can do it, because we are two type A personalities who, somehow came to a point of putting the past behind us and not making anybody a villain and putting our son first. And then everything sort of fell into place.
Right.
Let's.
It wasn't perfect in the beginning. I think people need to realize that we went through some rocky months.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that's a really good point, Nikki. And let's talk about that a little bit, because if you read anything I write, or if you ever talk to me, or if anyone has gone through our process, they'll hear me say, not once, but probably 1,000 times, because I am a stepmom. I have been divorced, and I have raised 5 children in a blended family. So I am a firm believer that divorce does not mess your kids up. It's how the parents behave before divorce, during divorce, and after divorce that can mess your children up.
100%.
However, you call your company or your book The Happy Divorce. And I think everybody has to define happy. Yeah. What is happy? And that can mean something very different to everyone. And that's okay.
Right.
So happy for somebody could be that as a stepmom, I can remember happy for me sometimes was that my stepchildren went home on Sunday night. And that's okay, because it was exhausting, right?
Yeah, and I think
that's totally normal.
Yeah, and I think, and Nikki said it took time. I think if you had asked us 13 years ago what happy meant, what our definition of a happy divorce was, it would have been that we could just be in the same room together.
Exactly.
And or at an event together or a birthday party together, and
not make everybody feel uncomfortable, but most importantly, our son. So,
Right.
you know, there are, even today, we know people who have happy divorces. They might not be to the extreme that Nikki and mine are, or, you know, they might be better. But
Exactly.
it's just that you put the kids first. You don't hand the kids the emotional bill to pay for something they had absolutely no choice in.
Exactly. I think your son said it's so cute, and he is Asher, right?
Yeah.
It's how you say it.
Adorable.
Oh my God, he's so cute. And I watched your video clip, and he said, you know, I always wanted siblings. Well, maybe not so much, you know.
After it came, right? Yeah.
And he was like,
And
oh,
so-
can't they go back? No.
Yeah. I thought that was so cute, and it's so true. So his happy was, I got them. Well, maybe today I don't want them, you know.
Right.
And you know, it was so cute. It kind of ties it all up. And so in divorce, you know, we say that with our couples when we're negotiating a settlement, or we're going through their financial portrait with them, which is, you know, it's kids and your finances. You know, so what would your happy be? You know, is your happy keeping the house? Is your happy having the retirement monies? Is your happy having your children 3 days a week, every other weekend, so you can have your career? You know, define what your happy is. So I love the title of your book, and it's okay to define that and define your co-parenting, because your co-parenting is not the same as my co-parenting.
No, it's
And
different
it's
for
okay.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you come to your happy, the two of you?
Yeah.
Well,
Love that.
it definitely took I think it took less work on my part than it did on his.
Oh, why is that?
I sort of set out thinking, how am I going to do this? My parents are still married after 52 years. So I kind of had the mindset like, okay, what am I going to do to make my son's life as close to the way I grew up as possible, but being divorced? So that was always like something that was in my head, and like it was sort of ingrained to try to figure out a way to make him like have what I had growing up and not feel slighted.
Yeah. And I on the other hand, grew up in the complete opposite household of a family of parents who didn't have a happy divorce. And so, you know, part of it was ingrained in me that, you know, being a child of the 80s, well, actually I was born in the 70s, early 70s, but parents were divorced in the 80s, that it was the way it was, right? People got divorced, and it wasn't, how are we going to get along? How are we going to co-parent? It's like, we're going to go to war. I'm going to get my lawyer. You're going to get yours, and it's going to be battle. So I also was in a completely different place in my life, emotionally. I wasn't a very happy person at the end when I left our marriage. And for me, that manifests itself pointing the finger at Nikki. It was all her fault. It was all her, you know, if only she hadn't done this, if only she should have done, you know, and shoulding all over myself. That's SHOULD, not the other one. But, you know, and then what it took was, you know, a realization or clarity to find out, you know, what my part was in the relationship. So we had to, in order to get to happy, you know, we had to clean up the wreckage of the past, and we had to get honest, you know, about what our part is, and understand that it takes two to make a relationship. It takes two to ruin a relationship. And just like our happy divorce, it works that way too. Now it takes four to make it because we're both remarried. But, you know, we both, in our book, it's doesn't go into, you know, what happened, who did what, who didn't do what. Because at the end of the day, what we are, you know, realize is all that stuff doesn't matter. You know, what matters is that we both came to a place of forgiveness, but also, you know, admitted what we had done wrong.
How did you come to a place of forgiveness? What started turning the tide from the anger and the resentment, or whatever the negative emotions were? What happened on both of your parts to just start to turn that tide a little bit?
Well, yeah, for me, I mean, because again, Nikki wasn't as scorned, I guess you could say, which is, you know, weird for her, but
It's really weird for me.
But you know, I left
Usually
the house.
I'd be the one out for blood.
Right, exactly. I left the house in, you know, a way that I look back and I almost cringe, a very dramatic way. Like I took off my ring, I put it on the bathroom counter with a picture of us torn up, and I left.
Very
and,
dramatic.
Very
It's
dramatic.
like something I would have done.
And I went and I did my research and I hired I looked for the best, you know, shark lawyer, the one who had all the biggest cases in Tampa, and you know, definitely did my research. I called him and I, you know, explained to him what I wanted. And I wanted to destroy Nikki, and I wanted to embarrass her, and I wanted to show our son what a fraud she was, at least how I saw her. And so I got, you know, he took a very hefty retainer from me, and then he wrote up a manual on how we were going to go about doing what I wanted to accomplish. And I didn't read it for a little bit, and it was in my backpack that I carry everywhere. And I was on a plane back from LA to Tampa, and I pulled it out and I decided to read it. And I got 2 pages into it. And this thing was like 30 pages long.
It's probably the same thing he gives everybody else.
Right. Just different
Different,
boilerplate.
everybody's
Right.
names are just changed.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden I had a moment of clarity. And I saw for the first time in a long time that if I went down this path of what, you know, continuing to read this you know, War and Peace manual, destruction manual, what it was going to lead to, because I knew where it was going to lead to, because I had been down that road. I'd been part of my parents' divorce down the road. Or I could try to find a different way and a different path. And so I called Nikki when I landed and I said, you know, I need some time. I need some space. Because I knew I couldn't deal with the divorce in the headspace I was in. You know, and probably Nikki too. And you know, we weren't ready to start talking about the end until we cleared up the past and found our part. So I called the lawyer and I said, I'm going to find a different way. If he could send back, you know, the balance of the retainer, and conveniently there wasn't much left. And so, but it was the best money I ever spent. And so then I started working with somebody that I knew, and, you know, just went through and found out what my part in the relationship was, and my part in the ending of the relationship. And realized about halfway through that I wouldn't want to be married to me either at that time. You know, I was not in a good place. I was not the father I thought I was, but more importantly, I wasn't the husband, you know, I thought I was. So then I called Nikki to coffee, and she probably had no idea why I was calling her.
No, because I kind of knew this was going on with him. And so, I mean,
she knew.
And I knew that this
it was that black sedan that was following me
that
everywhere.
This was the mindset he was in. And I just knew I hadn't gotten to that place. I mean, yes, I was like angry and I was sad and I was upset, but I wasn't in the place that he was at, where I sort of was like, let's just get this over with. Let's just, you know, fix this. So fix it to a point where it's just done. So to me, I went at this a totally different way. I hired, you know, I did hire a lawyer, but it was kind of more like, what do I do? Like, here's this thing, here's this divorce. What am I going to do with this? So mine wasn't like, let's attack him and let's kill him, but
your hardest thing also was that you said it too, was a fix it. Nikki is a fixer. She wants to get in there and fix everything, and not call her a control freak, but control freak.
I am a control freak.
But
were you living together at the time, or were you separated in different homes?
We were in different homes, but not really. Like, he didn't really at that time. He's
somewhere in between there. I was staying at a hotel for about 6 months, and I'd come home. And
did you really stay in a hotel for 6 months?
6 months, like the biggest, most exciting time of my life during that time was when they released a new movie on the on-demand thing at the hotel, because I'd watched them all. But and then I eventually got a place. So I think we weren't officially divorced yet when I had my own place, but it was when we told our son, because we didn't. He forced our hand to tell him because, you know, why don't you tell a story about us thinking we were getting over on him?
Oh, yeah. So Ben would come over every morning before Asher would go to school. And, you know, he would make sure he was there before he woke up. One morning.
How old was he?
4?
At the time?
Yeah.
4.
4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he comes in my room. Ben is already there. And he looks at me and he says, "Hey, Mom, where did Daddy sleep last night?" And I always thought I did a really good job of like messing up the bed, thinking like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? Right here. And he's like, where did daddy sleep last night? And I was like, oh boy, this kid is way smarter than we're giving him credit for. So we need to do something. And it's time for us to like sit him down as best we can with someone that young and just say, hey,
This is
this is what's happening. We love you. And I mean, that's probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life.
It was hard, but he, we framed it in a way and we were open with him. And I think if anything, from our experience, again, not lawyers, not therapists, but, through my experience with my parents, my experience with my son and our divorce, is the idea that kids are resilient and they'll get over it, or that they're, they don't see things to forget, is nonsense. It is absolute nonsense. Right. And I can say that from experience, on both sides of it, right? Our kids will get over it. They're resilient. They'll, they don't know what's going on. And here's a 4-year-old who knew
exactly what was going on.
Right. Like playing Inspector Clouseau, knew that I hadn't slept there because my bed wasn't made. My pillows weren't ruffled or whatever he did. Right. So, that's another message that we try to get across, is that don't fool yourself. And that, to me, and I'm just staying on my soapbox too much here, but to me, that's justification for behaviors.
I mean, to this day, he still claims that he saw boxes, which we never let a box, like,
at least we thought we did.
We thought we didn't, but he still says he saw boxes.
I think sometimes even if he didn't see boxes, he probably heard you talk about boxes.
Right. And in his head, he's like, oh, yeah.
Like, you can probably remember, talking about something in your childhood. You don't really remember going to Disney World when you were 2, but you remember seeing pictures that you went to Disney World when you were 2. Yeah. So you think you remember you were in Disney World when you were 2.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure he heard about that or saw that, So he's a smart kid. And, like I said, I feel like I know him a little bit from watching the video.
He wraps up the book too. He's got a chapter at the end of the book that just puts a bow on it perfectly, because our happy, your answer is, how does your happy look? We didn't know it was going to be happy at the time, but I called her to coffee after I'd done this work on myself, and the first thing I told her was I was sorry that I'd done some work myself, and I realized that it's no one's fault. It's not her fault. It's not my fault. We have equal parts of this, and I'm sorry for my part. I wasn't, I went through some of the things. I wasn't a very good husband. I ignored you. I, didn't blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to apologize again. I already did that.
Yeah.
You're only getting it once.
Yeah. She's sitting here smiling and she's like,
yeah, she loves it.
Yeah.
And so we went through it, and, then she apologized to me, which,
which is probably the first and only time I've ever apologized.
And you're lucky because we have this recorded. So you guys
No.
On repeat. You can both listen on repeat.
Yeah.
And then from that moment on, like, it didn't just all of a sudden become happy, but there was room to move, because we then we both genuinely accept each other's apologies. And we told each other we loved each other, and that we committed at that meeting to putting our son first with every decision we made. So our happy looked like not what was in, Nikki's bank account or Nikki's family's bank account, or, what I thought I deserved. Our happy was what was best for our son.
Yeah. So, we like to get real with everyone. And, a lot of our viewers come from a wide range, and we deal with a lot of affluent people, but we also deal with people who aren't affluent, or they don't know that they're affluent. We deal with a lot of budgeting, and we hone in on financials with everyone. And as a CDFA, I sit down, and Karen does a lot of the budgeting with our clients, pre-divorce and post-divorce. And so, we listen to your story, and it sounds great. You afforded him the ability to go through the mucky waters of what he needed to figure out for himself, which is a luxury, because he had that time to do that. And you blamed her in the beginning, and you had all that anger, and you went and hired the bulldog, which, oh my God, we hear so many times people go and hire the bulldog, and only 10% of divorce cases need whatever anybody wants to refer to as the bulldog. And Karen loves to jump in and really get the definition of what a bulldog actually means, because you don't really need a bulldog. But anyway, so that's a whole nother podcast. But what really, what did you do with your finances? Because a lot of people who have money there, they can't access it during that time. How do you stay in a hotel room if you can't get the money? And what did you two have your separate bank accounts? Because people can't be happy if they can't get their financials, right? Yeah. So if somebody out there wants to have a happy divorce, they come to us. So for example, for us, we start with your finances. So we can afford them that time to work through the financials so they don't run to attorneys. You don't need 2 attorneys gathering your financial data. It's the same data you're collecting. You're paying thousands and we save people hundreds of thousands of dollars, because why are you paying them to gather the same information and go through that packet of information you were asked to gather?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Why would you both have to do that? So we do that so that they can work through their stuff, right?
Yeah.
So during that time.
I think what's important, at least, is yes, we, whether from my experience and also from this process of writing this book with Nikki and talking with people, it doesn't matter if there are $1,000 in the bank or there's $100 million in the bank, for the most part, because what it comes down to is financial insecurity, right? And what I think divorce, the problem with divorce and why it sometimes goes sideways is because it deals with 2 of the biggest, trigger buttons. I could use a different word, but trigger buttons of our human condition, and that's romance and finance, and both those speak directly to ego, right? And so, our financial settlement was the same as our custodian, our custody agreement. Is that we tried to, as much as possible, take ego out of it, right? And to try to take and put Asher's first. So when it came time to discussing finances, it was, okay, well, what's best for Asher? People, Nikki or myself had to make sacrifices or give more or take less or whatever it was, but it wasn't simple, right? It was easier though, when we looked at it through a pair of glasses of what's best for Asher, and you take the ego out of it as much as possible.
Right. I mean, I think too, for him, it was about, his life.
Right.
And the way we wanted him to be raised, we wanted him to be raised at both houses as basically as much the same
as possible.
Even with rules.
Right.
We both have, with 4 parents, there's a lot of rules too.
Right. Well, there was a lot of, communication,
Yeah.
and we went through the financial part is the other thing we did, which we both had lawyers. So I don't want to say that we did this, willy-nilly, but we did what's called collaborative, and it wasn't. We did.
We sort of brought it to our lawyers and said, hey, this is what we think we want to do.
Right. So what we've tried and agreed to try is let's figure out what we can do on our own. And let's go through it with this pair of glasses that we now have of what's best for Asher, try to take ego out of it and see where we go.
And I think for us too, I guess couples are, one of his biggest things for me was, like with me, was, do you have a problem with joint custody of our son? And obviously if he was not a good guy or had some sort of issues, that would be a different story. But obviously I had no problem with that. So that was almost one of the first things that kind of like softened him a little bit.
That was the first question I asked, was, do you have any problem with joint 50-50, everything with our son, from, the left shoe to the right shoe, right? Everything. And she said, of course not. Yours, Dad. I said, with the other stuff, we can work it out. And
That's
so that
great.
we started with that foundation, and then that we were on the same page with that. Right. And then we went to some other things like the businesses we had together. And, Nikki had a jewelry company that she had started that I owned half of. And, I had a record label, that I had started with her sister, which is kind of weird, but so it wasn't necessarily about how much each one was worth at the time or the balance sheet of the jewelry company versus the record label. It was just,
it was like, it was things that he could have been like, oh, I'm going to get her because I want my half of that.
Yeah, and I had no desire to be in the jewelry business. But if I was looking at it from
shouldn't have been in it.
Yeah, right. Right, but if I'd been looking at it from a scorn, ego standpoint, I was like, I'm going to take the jewelry business because I know how much it means to her.
Right.
Well, I think it's really great that it's because you work through well, let me back up first. It's because, I always say 2 people, you come together and you get married. it takes two people to get married and it takes two people to get divorced,
Yeah.
you know, and none of it has to do with your children, right? So you took the time to heal first.
Yeah.
And then you made the important decision. So, you know, Karen, you know, and you can pick up from this, the process that we developed, because we're divorced before we started, we saw how people got divorced. And when I went through my divorce 8 years ago, I just thought, hell, people have to get divorced different. This is just ridiculous. You know, you have to, the way we work is you do your financials first, and then you take your agreement, and we do a lot of negotiated agreements. And when we get to them, take this to your attorney, pretty much what you're saying, and have them draw up this agreement. You don't need them to talk to each other to tell you what you should do for yourselves, right?
Yeah.
So
you just need to know what you want, and they don't necessarily spend a lot of time helping you figure that out.
And you don't need a judge to tell you how to set up visitation for your lifestyle and your child.
Control
Like,
your own destiny.
No, I do all our calendar. Well, because I'm that person.
Right.
Yeah. You should
Literally,
know.
like she prints out, like we used to,
I still use paper.
in the
calendars
beginning,
first.
we used to meet at the same coffee shop, the same table, with Nikki's calendars, which
And
are
pencils.
legendary. You know, not an iPhone calendar, not a computer, like the actual calendar printed out, and we go through the month and, you know, what days you traveling, and
I
I'd
love
tell
that.
her, and we would do the schedule. And then over time, this is sort of how the evolution of our divorce happened. Then now she just does it, and I trust in her. Not that I didn't trust in her before. Oh, maybe not.
But it works.
But it worked. But now she does it, and it's in our shared calendar with Asher, and you know,
he knows where he is. He knows where to go. He knows. Yeah.
and it's 15 days, and if there
Sports is on there. Anything. Everything's on that calendar.
Yeah.
Dinners. Anything. Everybody can see it.
and so she does. But the thing that we went to too is we again tried to see where we agreed or what we could do by ourselves, and ended up doing the whole thing and hashing out the whole you know, settlement over, you know, many coffee meetings. It just didn't happen at that one coffee, but same table, same coffee shop, and then we handed it to the lawyers. And we said,
that.
you know, add your whereas and your run-on sentences,
Right.
making it as confusing as possible. So, you know, you can get paid $450 an hour for somebody to then reread it to try to find a way out of that run-on. Anyways.
So
No
I'm
offense.
going to observe here that during all those coffee shop meetings and all of those different interactions, that the end result was that you redefined your relationship as parents of Asher and as, you know, as your future. So I think that is fantastic. And I think that's what we try to help our clients understand, that use the divorce process and use that time to redefine what you're going to be like post-divorce, because your kids need to be able to depend on that and rely on that. And it's a very important time. And the more time you spend fighting and arguing with each other, the less time you spend on creating that new relationship. So I think that's key.
Nobody's ever been happy or survived feeding their kids poison, hoping the other one dies.
Right.
You know, and I think that happens a lot in divorces. Is that and again, you know, one beautiful thing about this process is when I left that house, I was angry. I was, you know, going to go to war. I was going to go down the same path as my parents had gone down. But now I realize that my parents didn't sit around the table, you know, when they got divorced and premeditate how they were going to not get along and how they were going to get us in the middle of it and all that awkwardness. It was just, they were so blinded by the things we talked about earlier, the romance, the finance, and they were, you know, egos were hurt. So they were blind to it. I was blind to it. When I left that house and I hired the lawyer and I wasn't talking to Nikki, and, you know, I wasn't purposely sitting there how am I going to screw up my kid, you know? But it's hard, you know, it's hard on them. It was hard on me growing up.
Yeah. Well, you know, nobody gets married thinking they're going to get divorced.
No.
You know? And, you know, truth be told, myself included, there are times that you sit back and you say, you know, you wish your kid didn't have to go between one home and the other.
And
nobody wants their child to do that or spend half the Christmas. And then you have more children and you don't want them to have to leave their siblings and all of that. You know, it's not an easy process. And you can't be normal and wonder, you know, is my child okay? Really,
Right.
even though they're happy and they're healthy, we know they are. I mean, my children are thriving, and I'm happy for them, and they're doing so well. And I'm remarried. I got married in June, and you know, I feel like I have the love of my life, and I'm
Yeah.
so blessed, and my children love him, and so all of that. But we do wonder sometimes. But I think that's okay, and I think that's part of just being healthy human beings. But sometimes, you know, we deal with so many people with emotions, they can't see past that. And I think what your son has learned, most importantly, is the respect. And the reason why you let Nikki take over this whole calendar issue is because you respect her, and she respects you, and that's why she does it. Like, for your son to learn how a couple can respect each other is probably the best gift, because that's the best love you can give a partner.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
can't really love someone if you don't respect them.
No, and you brought up such a good point about co-parents too, and our spouses currently, you know, are you know, it just the other thing amazes me is, you know, I'm sure you see clients and people who, you know, are divorced, miserable, but remarried and happy, and yet they still have this, you know, this hatred towards the other one, and it's just like, if you could just take a step back and realize that if you hadn't gotten divorced and you hadn't gone down that, you wouldn't have met, you know, the other person.
Right.
And our spouses, Chad and Nadia, there's no question who we were meant to be with. You know, I mean, Nikki and Chad, like, I still, you know, I'm like, she never looked at me that way. She never grabbed my hand like that. I mean, it's like, I never think, what if, you know, yeah. But and then on the flip side, Nadia, you know,
the same way though. I mean, I tell her too. I look at her sometimes and I'm like, I mean, I couldn't be married to him, but she just smiles and loves him to death.
she loves me, you know, the unconditional love, which means you love the good and the bad just as much. And then Asher gets to see this, and he gets to see healthy relationships, and he gets to see, even though his parents are divorced, and this is the most sobering part about it, is a couple years ago we were on a fishing trip, and out of nowhere, he said, "This divorce is hard on me." You know, and this is like 3 years ago. And I felt like saying, you little SOB, you know, you have no idea what a bad divorce is or how hard a divorce is. And then it hit me, you know, even as good as Nikki and I have it, and I don't think, you know, maybe it could get better if we live together, but besides that, you know,
it would definitely not get
better
if we lived together.
I mean, he doesn't know that.
Yeah,
he doesn't know that.
So, but just the idea of being displaced every couple of days, and even though we live 7 houses down, he, you know, I've seen him go, oh, I forgot my math book at mom's, I got to go down and get it. You know, it's
he even says too, sometimes he'll look at me and go, you and dad get along so well. I don't, like, sometimes I don't understand why you aren't married anymore. And I'm like, you get along really well right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, we were meant to be best friends. I'm like, we weren't meant to be husband and wife. I go, you were meant to be here. So that's why we, I'm like, 100%.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
We took him on so a lot of kids read Dr. Seuss books, and as a kid, he was always an animal junkie. So we would read him animal encyclopedias, and he knew every single animal, you know, where they came from, where they lived. And we always knew that we wanted to take him to Africa on a safari. But he you know, with the shots and everything, so if anything was going to send our divorce south, it was that if one of the other ones had taken Asher to Africa without, you know, the other one. So this past summer, Nikki and Asher and I went to Africa, just the 3 of us, together on a safari. And
I didn't feed him to any animals.
And I didn't die. Nobody. There were no lion accidents.
No accidents.
But it was a great opportunity for our son. You know, and you know, our spouses, when we told them,
I mean, we asked them if they wanted.
Right.
It was an open invitation trip.
But her husband just has this small responsibility, being the sheriff of Hillsborough County, and my wife was raising our 2 sons and starting a practice of her own. So it just wasn't possible. But
raising your what?
What?
Your 2 sons.
Oh no, 2 kids. Well, 2 sons and daughter. But she's, you know, she has 2 young kids at home, and so it just wasn't possible for them to go. But the response, and this is where it really just comes full circle, wasn't, are you crazy that you think that it's okay for you to go to Africa in the middle of the bush with your ex-wife? Are you nuts? It was, Asher will love that. What a great opportunity he has to go to Africa with his parents
Right.
and have that experience.
And day 2 of our trip, he looked at me and he said, "Thank you so much. This is the best trip I could have ever gone on."
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that's really rare. There's not very many. I don't know anyone, and that's really rare.
Yeah,
That's
and
really special.
again,
I mean, and there are people that still think we're crazy.
right, and
I mean,
and it didn't happen overnight.
Our families thought we were crazy in the beginning.
I still
They
think
never.
might.
I think they might too.
But the important thing is, and we try to, again, I think we started this conversation with this, is that it didn't happen overnight. When
Right.
Nikki, and a small example of that is when Nikki married Chad, Nikki called me and said, "I don't think that I feel comfortable with inviting you to the wedding." And it's because I don't want people to worry about how Ben's feeling, how, take away from, this is my day. And I was, completely understandable. Like, it wasn't ready. It wasn't the right time. It wasn't about me. It was about Nikki and her day and her second day. And her and Chad and right, she's right. What has Ben, all the guessing, oh, the ex-husband's here. I wonder this is weird. But again, fast forward about 3-4 years later, I get married, and Nikki's and Chad and her whole family are at my wedding, and not like I gotcha, like, hey, you didn't invite me to yours. I'm going to show everybody I'm a bigger person. Sorry,
There's something in my ear.
there's my phone is. So that she came to my weddings, and so it's been progress, and not perfection, but it's been progress, and it's getting there, and it didn't happen overnight. We've been doing this for 13 years. It just become
awesome.
It's just become more natural.
Yeah, that's really good.
That is great. So let's pivot to the topic of the day, because I think a lot of people will benefit from your perspective on the pandemic and COVID and parenting children or co-parenting children who are traveling back and forth. And a lot of what we're hearing is, I don't know if my son or daughter or my children are safe at the other parent's house, because they're not being, they're not sheltering in place, and they're not making sure, everything's taken care of. So we're hearing a lot of that, and everybody's just cooped up together. So what can you offer the parents and the kids going through this right now, to offer some kind of support?
I think for us, I mean, obviously we have it a little differently than most divorced couples, but I think in the beginning we sort of sat down and had a conversation, like an open conversation, and we weren't going to keep anything from Asher. We wanted him to know what was going on in the world, but we were on the same page about what Asher was. In the beginning it was kind of a little slower process. Oh, they can do this, they can do this, and they can't do this. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, you can't do anything. So I think it took both of us to try to explain to him too in the beginning, like, listen, you really can't leave the house. Like, you're not going anywhere. You can get in your car and you can go for a drive, but you can't stop anywhere. You can't talk to your friends. You can't see your friends. You can't do anything. And I think the same went for the two of us. We kind of said, listen, what's going on at your house? Where are you going to go? Where am I going? And we kind of got on the same page where we were like, you have to shut it down. I mean, other than the fact that my husband has to go to work, he even tries to shut it down where he goes into work, goes in his office, he sees all of about 2 people when he goes into work, and that's it, because he doesn't have a choice.
Right.
But we just decided in the beginning, let's shut this down. And so, Asher's obviously homeschooled now. Well, whatever that's called, virtual school, whatever that is.
It's a new homeschool. Yeah,
So,
everybody.
I mean, we kind of even made a decision too, where the days Asher is at Ben and Nadia's house, he comes over to our house by 9:30 in the morning to start school, unless he's got a Zoom class that starts before that. And he does all of his schoolwork at our house until he's done. Because
otherwise it'd be mayhem with his brothers and sisters, like, going into
them trying to do their school, and then him trying, and then constantly, because all they want to do is when he's there, they just want to be with him.
Right.
How old are they? What's the age difference?
4 and 7. So
and Asher's 16.
Yeah. So 9 years difference. But the other thing is, I think that the way we handle this pandemic is sort of a microcosm of how we handle life and our divorce, you know, we had a conversation. We both agreed upon the rules at both houses that, you know, we were going to social distance. We were going to be responsible. We were going to shelter in place. We were going to do all the same things at both houses. And once we did that, all of a sudden, now our sphere of quarantine has widened. That's why Nikki and I are sitting next to each other right now, and not because
we quarantine together. I see the kids, you know, almost every day.
Right. We can go down to her house because, you know, Asher's been going to, you know, back and forth, being the outbreak monkey. So if it was going to be in one house, it was going to be in the other house anyway.
If it's in one house, we're all getting it.
So it's been.
What do you do, Ben, if Nadia doesn't agree with Nikki?
About
parenting rules or where you go,
So I think that, you know, one of the greatest things about Nadia and Chad is, you know, we all co-parent together, and you know, Nadia is a therapist, specializing in you know, kids and that whole. So she brings a different perspective. She doesn't try to step on Nikki's shoes. She disagrees with some things we do with Asher, but she says it, and I'm sure Chad does too. She says it, and they say it. But at the end of the day, we're his parents, and at the end of the day, we're you know, going to make the ultimate decision. But for the most part, since it's evolved, the four of us usually sit down on the big ticket items, right? On the, like, Nikki and I have different parenting styles. Nadia and I have different parenting styles.
Chad and I have different parenting
styles. And Nikki and I would have different parenting styles whether we were married or divorced. So it's just about finding the compromise.
Some sort of common ground with all of us.
Picking your battles. I've learned to pick my battles with her. It's not worth, you know. You know, so you know, the COVID thing. You know, we ran out of paper towels, for just a small example. But, you know, I called Nikki, and, you know, I knew that she probably had 25 cases of it. But even if she didn't, I knew that she would give us one. You know,
give you some.
And that's just the way that.
Hoarding.
Yeah, she's always been, but there's no difference. She's.
I do not hoard toilet paper. I don't understand the toilet paper thing. No. I barely have enough toilet paper at the house.
She's been preparing for this thing for what, 45 years?
So you didn't say, Asher, go when you're at mom's house, just grab toilet paper, throw it in your bag, and just bring it home.
No, and I go over there, and I got caught robbing her pantry.
For snacks.
For snacks.
And then if you notice, my hair is pink. It is not normally pink. This has been a quarantine thing. And his daughter is convinced that her hair is going to be pink too. So I tried once. Her hair is darker than mine, so didn't work. So now I just, instead of asking for permission, I'm like, okay, well, I'm dyeing your daughter's hair pink.
Yeah, I found out after I got home from work yesterday. She did. But so that's, I mean, this is again like what our life is like today. You know, it truly is. You know, you talked about the byline on the book, but it's also the other one we talk about is finding a different kind of love. You know, and that's what we've done over the past 14 years or however long it's been. Is that, you know, I love this woman. I've always loved this woman. I think we kind of got confused with being in love and love. But luckily enough that we never lost, we might have lost it for a little bit there, but we got back to it. And then it's evolved into this thing that, you know, that is beyond us, beyond our wildest imagination. And again, if we can do it, and this might sound like French or Latin to some of your listeners right now, it's real, and but it was a process.
That's awesome.
You know, if you're starting out, I don't know if what you tell your, clients, but, you know, take small steps. And that's what we had to do in the beginning is, you know, get the small wins and, you know, get the softball game where there wasn't an awkward feeling, or, you know, an event at your kid's school where you didn't walk away feeling awkward. Like, that's a win, right? You know, that's a small win. And then the wins start piling up, or, you know, you're in Africa and no one's dying.
I love that. We tell our clients, you know, you do not have to tell your children that their mom's, you know, an alcoholic or their dad's an idiot. If they're an idiot or an alcoholic, they'll see it for themselves.
Right.
They will.
You know, just be the dad or the mom that you want to be, because that's what they're going to see.
That's true.
And like I said, you know, it brings tears to my eyes. I had chills when I watched your video, because, you know, I do what I do, and Karen can speak for herself, but I know that she does it also. But we do what we do because we're advocates for the children of the parents that we help, and we've helped over 400 couples already. Because one day I'm hoping that the children of the parents will stand up and say, those women helped my parents divorce a better way. You know, we don't need attorneys fighting for parents to, you know, set a parenting schedule or to help divide assets. You know, that's what you have professionals to do. So we're doing what we're doing to help people divorce a better way. We just need the attorneys to tie it up and put the as is or as set forth or whatever those words are that you want to put in. We don't really care. We just want them to have financial clarity and to help them set up a co-parenting plan that works for their family. I'm like you, Nikki. I like to write paper agendas and put stickers on everything and all that stuff.
I love it.
Yeah. That's how I like it too. So I love hearing your story because I think that's how it should be.
Yeah.
I hope you can come to our Mrs. To Me Summit and maybe speak and talk to our attendees.
Oh, we'd love to. We'd love to, because that's what we're, you know, why we wrote the book. It's not, you know, this is truly an altruist. I mean, nobody wants to spill their, you know, in the book, we talk about our shortcomings. We talk about our, you know, failures. We're imperfect, but we, you know, what we have is real, and just to, for people to, you know, for it to be inspirational, you know, and it was so, we're so happy to do this thing and then run into people like you guys and others who, we kind of kept our head down. Like, it's as silly as this sounds, like when we got divorced, there was no Facebook or Instagram. There's MySpace, but, you know, not a lot of, you know, divorce co-parenting.
MySpace, is that even around?
I remember that. Oh
right.
my gosh.
So, you know, we didn't have support groups online to go to. And then even writing the book, like it took us 4 years to write this book because, you know, we get in a fight and this was my idea and I was trying to
say, no, I'm not doing your book.
I'm not doing your effing book. And you can see, you know, blah, blah, blah. So, but then all of a sudden we get the book out and we're starting to do some research and we see this huge community online. Right. And it's not like, oh no, we just launched a book and there's so many other, it was like, this is great.
Like, this is awesome. Like,
this is great. Let's get, you know, these people have the same goal as us. And it's to let people know
there's a different way.
There's a different way going into it. Right. Like not even like after it's all, you know, they're divorced and it's yucky and all that. But, you know, I think I went into it thinking that if I get divorced, it's War of the Roses. It's on, you know, this is the only way to go. But
that's the only kind of divorce I ever knew though. So that, but
yeah.
That's all people know. I mean, they come to us sometimes when they've been in the process and we're like, oh my gosh, I wish you would have came here first because you just wait. I mean, they spent 20, 40,000 and they come with bags of papers. They don't even know what they have. And I look at Karen because the legal process to me is such a crock sometimes. And it's not logical thinking. And as a financial, I'm like, what? So she's like, it's the process. This is the process. And so I get so, look at her, she's laughing because I get so annoyed that people spend money for that. And so we're digital, we work nationally. So I just crack up at the process. So I just wish people can come here first because it would save them so much angst. It starts couples fighting when they don't even have to fight. Like I said, oh my God, because they get served this nasty language. And they say, oh my God, he's going after this or she's going after this. And the couple will say, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean to do that. And so now a war began where the person didn't even mean it. So when you said you got to work out your stuff first, I was like, thank God. He came to his senses because he didn't really want to attack you. But that's how it would have. That's how it would have started because, like you said, that package. He said, Nikki said, yeah, he probably sends that to everybody. That's exactly what that attorney does. And unfortunately, they have to send it like that because that's the process. You know, so
and it's so, you know, for us, at least for me in the beginning, it was really thin ice. I mean, I think that's the thing is one misstep. You know, I don't know if you guys saw The Marriage Story, but that is like a perfect example of one. If she had just maybe read that letter in that first meeting, it might have turned out the way it seemed like the movie had ended. And for me, you know, if I hadn't just had that moment of clarity right then or pulled it out at that particular time, whatever it was and whenever it happened, who knows? But it's in the beginning, it's just it's a powder keg, you know, we're ready. And to go to people who are aligned with a better outcome, will help you sort of, guide you down that path of the right way. We didn't have that, but luckily we got there.
Yeah.
Somebody tell that
Kudos.
woman, Laura or Scarlett Johansson, read the letter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Read your
Read the
letter.
letter.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, you guys are great. And I think one of my takeaways from today is first and foremost, have the conversation. Try to have as many conversations as you can, as rugged as they are. But also what I've noticed from hearing you today is whenever something happens today or yesterday that kind of is a trigger, I see that you assign it to that person, not to your relationship that broke apart years ago. And I think a lot of couples haven't developed the ability to do that. Whenever the other person does something that's irritating or that creates that trigger, that's why I divorced him. I hate him. He's a terrible person, blah, blah, blah. But I see you just saying, that's Ben or that's Nikki,
Right.
and we're different, and you move on. And I think that's key in the ongoing relationship.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think
Yeah, I
Nikki
love
would say the same thing is that, some of the same buttons that I pushed when we were married, I still pushes. She still pushes the same. And like we said about parenting, our parenting skills would be different, or styles would be different if we were divorced or married. Same with the personality, but it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to accept Nikki today being her best friend than it is being her husband. But it's still like, but I've also dealt like, okay, I'll give it a day when she tells me she's not doing the effing book. And I'll let her Italian hothead cool off a little bit, and then I'll come back. But
I'll take a roll of paper towels and I'll go home. I'll talk to her tomorrow.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you both for being with us today.
Guys.
And for our listeners, the book is Our Happy Divorce, and your website is ourhappydivorce.com. You're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, I believe, as well.
Twitter, everything at Our Happy Divorce. Yeah.
All right. We're happy to meet you, and we hope to see you soon at Mrs. To Me. We'll talk with you a little bit more about that.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Have a nice and safe and healthy day.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for everything you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Let us know about that, whatever, the summit or whatever you want.
We will. We'll reach out to you.
However you want to use us to help spread the message, because it sounds like we're very much aligned. So just
great.
looking
Yeah,
for
we'll
better
stay in
outcomes.
touch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Be well. Bye.